إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا يا رب العالمين. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and praise Him Azza wa Jal for His blessings. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us His pleasure in this dunya hereafter. Allahumma ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. We'll continue with the explanation of important lessons for every Muslim. The booklet of Shaykh Ibn Baz rahmatullahi alayhi, explained by Shaykh Abdul Razak Al Badr hafidhahullah ta'ala. And we are in the last lesson, not our last lesson, but the last lesson that the Sheikh put. It's going to take a couple of lessons, inshallah ta'ala. Last lesson that he put in the book, which is the 18th lesson. The lesson before was about what? Was about the sins. Especially we talked about the kaba'ir. Kaba'ir al-dhunub, or the major sins. So the 18th lesson that the Sheikh ended his booklet with it is preparing, praying over and burying the deceased, which is very important. And subhanAllah, today we had a janazah. So qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have explained that before, but it is good, the reminder, and the reminder benefits the believers. The Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi said, the 18th lesson is preparing the deceased, praying over him, burying him, and there are details about that. First, that's the words of the Shaykh Ibn Baz. When death approaches the person, it is prescribed to encourage him to say, La ilaha illallah. Nothing has the right to be worshipped than Allah, other than Allah. This is based upon the statement of Allah, statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لَقِنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. I'm going to explain this because some people, they misunderstand this word. Encourage your dying to say, La ilaha illallah. Nothing has the right to be worshipped except Allah. Then second, he said, when you are certain of his death, close his eyes and tie his jaws due to what has been narrated in the Sunnah concerning that. Third, it is an obligation to watch the deceased Muslim, except if he is a shaheed, martyr, who died in a battlefield. In this case, he is not washed, not prayed over, and in janazah, and he is buried in his clothes instead. This is because the Prophet ﷺ did not wash those who died in the battle of Uhud, nor did he pray over them. So that's the words of the Shaykh, rahmatullah alayhi. Shaykh Al-Badr, hafidhahullah ta'ala, the explanation that this is the final lesson in this beneficial treatise or booklet. In this lesson, the Shaykh specified the matters pertaining to the deceased and preparing his body, praying over him, salat al-janazah, and burying him. There is no doubt that this is a very important matter, which is incumbent upon the Muslim to learn and know. Death, as we know, is an affair that will happen to everyone. Each one of us is going to die one day. Allah says, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ وَإِنَّمَا تُوَفَّوْنَ أُجُورَكُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every soul will taste death. وَإِنَّمَا تُوَفَّوْنَ أُجُورَكُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Indeed, you're going to get fully paid your ajr, your reward from Allah Azza wa Jal, day of the judgment. Even if you get something in this worldly life, of the hayat al-tayyibah, the goodness, but that's not fully the reward what Allah gives. يوم القيامة. وإنما توفون أجوركم يوم القيامة. فمن زحزح عن النار وأدخل الجنة. Whoever, look at even the word Arabic, it's not like normal word. زحزح. It's not easy even to say it. فمن زحزح عن النار, يعني meaning that it's الفاعل مبني للمجهول. In Arabic language, that the one who did this is not mentioned, but is understood who did this, the one who made this person to be saved. He did not save himself, but Allah Azza wa Jal, He saved this person, made him to escape from the hellfire. فمن زحزح عن النار وأدخل الجنة. The same thing. Being him saved from the hellfire is a favor from Allah. Thank Allah for that. Second, he might be punished, or being saved from the hellfire, or not only they're there, where maybe he is in between hellfire and the Jannah. But Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned, وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةِ. Right after that, he will be entered paradise. Who entered him paradise? فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ وَرَحْمَتُهُ. It is because of the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where do you get that? Prophet said, لا يدخل أحد الجنة بعمل. None of you will enter Jannah paradise with his deeds. ولا أنت يا رسول الله. Even you يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said, even me. Except إلا أن يتغمدني مني الله برحمة. Except if Allah will overwhelm me with his mercy. And as we say, دخول الجنة بفضل الله وكرمه ورحمته. Entering the paradise is because of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. None of us deserve it. But why this is the deeds? Prophet mentioned that. اعملوا فكل ميسر لما خلق له. You do your deeds, good deeds or bad deeds, because each one of you, it's going to be easier for him, the path that Allah created it for. Allah created it for Jannah. Allah will make it easier for you the path to do these good deeds, which are deeds which lead to Jannah, but not because of the deeds. Even if you are to worship Allah for 500 years, from the very first time that you were born in sajda, Allah, we don't deserve the Jannah and paradise and the favor of Allah, subhanAllah. But only what the blessing Allah has given to us, it's not enough. So it is a favor of Allah. وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةِ. And he will enter Jannah, فَقَدْ فَازَ. That's the ultimate success. Indeed, he is successful. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعٌ. And that's a beautiful, raw description, really. And this worldly life is nothing except a short, momentary lived enjoyment. It will pass. It doesn't matter how long you lived. It doesn't matter where you live. How big was your house or your mansion? Thousands of square feet. Or maybe just one room. Or maybe you're homeless. In the grave, you're going to get like everybody gets in there. It is tight. It is dark. And nobody is with you except a good deed that you had in this morning life. Work for that day. As Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. And the Shaykh continues and says, there are rulings pertaining to a deceased that have been clarified in the Sharia legislation, which give concern to preparing the body, washing him, shrouding him, the kafan, praying over him, which is Salat al-Janazah, supplicating for him, making dua for him, and burying him. These are tremendous rulings clarifying the rights that the deceased has upon his family and the people in general. The deceased, our brother or sister that passed away, has rights upon his or her family and has rights upon us as Muslims, from their supplication for him and praying over him, like Salat al-Janazah and the dua that we do. If the people are ignorant of these matters, they don't know these matters, perhaps they will deal with the deceased in an incorrect manner that contradicts the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the legislation of Allah, as it relates to washing him, shrouding him, praying over him, Salat al-Janazah, burying him, and supplicating for him. Those who are ignorant of the laws of Allah will perhaps fall into matters that opposes Sharia and have no basis, will make bid'ah, innovation, instead of doing good. The Sheikh says, someone told me once that he was ignorant. He didn't know. And someone passed away from his family. He didn't know. Or in a janazah. He went to a janazah and prayed 2 rak'ah for the deceased, making ruku and sujood. Muslim. In a Muslim country. Why? Because we didn't learn. How many people they come for the first time pray Salat al-Janazah? They don't know. Here in this masjid. That's why we repeat, it's just a ta'aleem, teaching. Obviously, most of you who pray Salat al-Janazah know why Shaykh is reminding us always the same thing over and over again. Yeah, alhamdulillah, it's just repeating is good. But there are some people that maybe the first time they enter masjid. Some people, maybe they don't enter masjid except when they are mahmoud, when they are janazah. Allah al-Musta'an. May Allah guide us and guide all people right there. So he said that, and those who are ignorant of the legislation of Allah may fall into matters more severe than this. Obviously, this man that he did, it's not a big deal because he didn't know. But some people, they may fall and do things, doing bid'ah, innovations, or something haram. How many bid'ah or innovations are practiced at the time of the burial? Those things which do not benefit the deceased and which harm the living. All of this is due to ignorance of the religion. I have a book home. I bought it this time when I went to Umrah. One of my sheikhs, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, he wrote, it's like 760 pages. It's all about bid'ahs, innovations, which is done in the time of death, in the time of shrouding, in the time of janazah and azan and everything. 760 pages. I'll bring just to look at it, it's like how big and huge is the book and how much. I'll mention some of these because if you mention, you have to study that book to mention, but it's good to know. And obviously, it's not like mentioning 1, 2, 3, 4, 700 pages, but it's bringing the sayings of the scholars on this madhab and that madhab, what they said and how they said. But this, how many people they do. That's why they use, the scholars say, العلم كان العلم نقطة كثرها الجاهلون. The knowledge was one dot. And the pure knowledge, a little bit. Pure, that's it. You have to learn that. كثرها الجاهلون. That dot became so huge and big, like became an ocean because of the jahilun, because of the ignorant people. They add things, the scholars, they have to explain that. That's why it become bigger books. Before, short, little. Matan, mutun, you have to memorize this. And then that's it. Become bigger, but why? Because the people, they need more explanations, because people, they do stuff without knowledge. Therefore, it is upon the Muslims to give concern to these affairs and be accurate and precise in them, so they can deal with the deceased in the manner that agrees with the legislation of Allah and that which has come from the Messenger of Allah. The first that the Shaykh mentioned said, encouraging the dying to recite the Shahada. First, when death approaches the person, it is prescribed to encourage him to say La ilaha illallah. This is based upon the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, لَقِّنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Encourage your dying to say nothing has the right to be worshipped except Allah. Okay, some people, they misunderstand this. And they might be Arabs too, they understand the Arabic language. Said, because the word mawtakum in Arabic language, it means your dead people. It has the meaning of mawtakum, or the person who is dead, deceased. The hadith, that doesn't mean that. That's why some people, because of getting this hadith, they say it is from the sunnah to do the talqeen. Ya fulan, ibn fulan, at the grave. Oh, the son of, or the so-and-so. Say la ilaha illallah, say la ilaha illallah, say la ilaha illallah. Where? In the grave. It doesn't work like that. Khalas. The soul is gone. Yani this hadith is talking about, because that's a sunnah al-amaliyya, and this is a practical sunnah of the Prophet, what was done in his time, that the person, when he is about to leave and depart this worldly life, it is from the sunnah to remind him gently, as we're going to talk, to remind him to say la ilaha illallah. Gently. Not say la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. No, because that's what we're going to explain. That what is meant by dying, which is mawtakum, are those who are near death. Those people who are near death. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man kana akhira kalamihi la ilaha illallah, dakhala al-jannah." Whoever his last words were La ilaha illallah, nothing has right to be worshipped except Allah, he will enter Jannah and paradise. May Allah make us from those. Therefore, it is prescribed to encourage the dying person, the person who is about to die, to say this great statement, so that can be his last words in this prayer. For this reason, the Prophet said, encourage your dying to say, encourage. Nothing has the right to be worshipped except Allah. How are you going to encourage him? And it doesn't make any sense. How do we encourage him to say when he already passed from this worldly life? He is in the grave. And now, because the munkar and nakir, they're going to come to you, say la ilaha illallah, say this. This means that the one who has the signs of death upon him, not the person who was already passed. It is a sunnah to encourage them to say la ilaha illallah. The person should be encouraged in a gentle manner, so he does not become annoying. And sometimes person, you don't know what he's going through. And you may see him, but you don't know what's going through. Maybe pain or something. And he may say things that he doesn't like. He doesn't believe in it. And subhanAllah, because of that, his soul may be taken in that moment. Why? Because out of pain, you may say things when you are here in this world, are not about to die. you may be sick and out of anger, you may say things that you regret after that. What about in this moment? So that's why, without knowing, say La ilaha illallah. Especially while the person is in time of hardship. Once he says it, and you heard it and he says it, it's not asked to repeat it. Rather, he's left alone to say it. Then if he says some other words, okay, remind him one more time. Nicely, no? Okay, so just a reminder for him. So he's encouraged to say it again. That's the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the way how to be done. Then the Shaykh mentioned, rahmatullahi alayhi, closing the eyes and jaws at the time of death. The Shaykh mentioned that's when you are certain of his death, close his eyes and tie his jaws. Due to what has been narrated in the Sunnah concerning that. Once it has been affirmed that he has actually died due to the signs of death upon such as doctors, for example, saying he has died, then it's prescribed for him to close his eyes. Why? Because his soul, left his body, and the eyes follow the soul, as the Prophet mentioned. So the eyes stare, subhanAllah. They stare up as the soul is going, the last part to depart the body. Consequently, it is sunnah to close the eyes. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that دخل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم علي أبي سلمة وقد شق بصره فأغمضه. Prophet ﷺ visited Abu Salama. Ala, it's a mistake here, written with dots. Ala Abi Salama. Visited Abu Salama when his eyes, radiallahu anhu, were open soon after he died. So the Prophet ﷺ, this is sunnah amaliyah. And practically, he did, what did he do? He closed his eyes for him. He closed his eyes for him, so that's a sunnah to close the eyes for the person who has passed away. Also, his jaws should be tied, as we know. Both jaws, large bones, the teeth sprout about, they should be tied with cloth. This is perhaps, what's the wisdom behind that? Because the mouth will open if it's not tied. But if it's sealed, the mouth will remain closed when the body of the deceased cools down. As you know, when the deceased it cools down, that it's going to be like frozen. It's very hard to move in any parts of his body. So that's why when it's warm, you can move it. You can soften and things. You can do this as soon as he passed away. From the wisdom of this is that no water will enter his mouth, because you already tied his jaws, at the time of washing, and no vermin will enter his mouth when he's buried. Thing from the earth, insects and everything. So this is despite the fact that there is no specific text. And there's no hadith or anything telling this. It's included like in general principles. Allahu musta'an. The obligation of washing the deceased. The Shaykh Rahmatullah said, third, it is obligatory to wash the deceased Muslim. This is from the obligations and the rights of the deceased which should be fulfilled, and the description of washing will follow. And he mentioned, except the one who is shaheed, martyr, but what type of shaheed? The one who died in the battlefield. Okay, because other shuhada, we have different types of shuhada. This is shaheed dunya wal akhirah. He is martyr in dunya and hereafter. He specified those who die in the battlefield because the text mentioned others who are considered martyrs who did not die in the battlefield. They are called shuhada al akhirah. They are considered shuhada, martyrs in the hereafter, but they are not considered shuhada in the ahkam in this dunya. And the Prophet mentioned, for example, the mat'un shaheed wal ghariq shaheed. The one who dies by plague is a martyr. The one who drowns is a martyr. The one who dies by the earthquake, for example, is a martyr. The one who dies and his house is on top of his head. For example, what's happening in Gaza, inshallah, may Allah accept them as shuhada and everything. So it's considered shaheed. The one who dies as burned, hariq, as shaheed. So all of these, they have ahkam of shaheed in the hereafter, inshallah, they get the reward. But these individuals are martyrs in regard to their reward in the next life. But in this life, they are dealt with like others who die, normal people. They are washed, shrouded, and prayed over. Salat al-Janazah. As for those who die in the battlefield, they are not washed, nor prayed over, no Salat al-Janazah. They are buried in their clothes. This is because the Prophet did not wash those who died in the battle of Uhud, nor did he pray Salat al-Janazah over them. Jabir radiallahu ta'ala, he narrates and says about those who were killed during the battle of Uhud, زَمِّلُوهُمْ بِدِمَائِهِمْ فَإِنَّهُ لَيْسَ كَلْمٌ يكلم في الله إلا يأتي يوم القيامة يدمى لونه لون الدم وريحه ريح المسك. Wrap them, شهداء, in their clothes that are stained with blood. For there is no wound that is sustained for the sake of Allah, no wound that the person took it for the sake of Allah, except that it will come bleeding on the day of resurrection. Its color will be the color of blood, but its fragrance will be the fragrance of musk. So this is the wisdom for why they are not washed and they are left in their blood-stained clothes. As they passed away in this worldly life, they will be alive in Jannah, inshallah ta'ala, even one word, that in the way that Allah knows. And then they're going to be resurrected with that blood that is smelling like musk. It is so that the traces of their great worship can remain. And the act of struggling in the path of Allah Azza is considered obedience, as an ibadah in the path of Allah, to make kalimatullah an yakuna kalimatullah hiya al-ulya, to make the statement of Allah the highest. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. The description of washing the deceased. Fourth is the description of washing the deceased. The private area should be covered. Then the body is like, that's the words of Sheikh Abdul Bas. Then the body is slightly raised and his stomach is lightly pressed. Lightly pressed. Next, the person washing the body wraps his hands in a rag or something similar. You can use gloves to protect his hand. Then he performs wudu on the deceased. The same wudu used for the prayer. Then he washes his head and beard with water and lotus leaves or something similar. Next, his right side is washed. Then his left side. Then he is washed in a similar fashion a second and a third time. Each time the person presses lightly on the stomach of the deceased. If something exits from him, the area is washed. And the openings should be blocked with cotton. That's the word of the Shaykh. I explained that because there's different opinions in that. If the cotton does not stick, then utilize clay or one of the new medical methods such as paste or the like. Next, the wudu is performed again. If he is not cleaned with 3 washings, then he is washed up to 5 or 7 times. Next, the body is dried with a cloth. Then perfume is placed on the hidden places and the place of sujood. And it's also good if the entire body is perfumed. And the shroud, the kafan, is perfumed with bukhur. If the mustache or nails are long, they should be cut, and there is no harm if they are left alone. We'll talk about that too. The hair is not combed, and the hair on the private area is not cut, nor is a deceased circumcised. Before, there is no proof for any of this. The woman's hair is put into 3 braids and placed hanging behind her. That's in general what Sheikh Ibn Baz mentioned. Like, there is a lot we're going to go through little by little, inshallah, but don't worry, we're going to stop somewhere. The Shaykh mentioned here, rahmatullah alayhi, the description of washing the deceased in light of what has been narrated in the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. First, he mentioned the private area should be covered. When the clothes he was wearing are removed from him, the private area is hidden by placing a piece of cloth over it. Opposite, it makes sense. Look in the private area, it's not permissible, it's haram. Either be a person alive or deceased. The Shaykh mentioned here in a hadith, but to be frank, the hadith is weak. I'm just going to mention that the Shaykh mentioned, but I said Shaykh Al-Albani rahmatullah, he considered the hadith weak. We have different dalil or evidences, and actually there is ijma' of the scholars, unanimity, that it is haram to look at the private part of a living man or a dead person. It is ijma', and we know ijma' or unanimity of the scholars is one of the proofs, evidences. And you have what? Quran, Sunnah, ijma' or qiyas analogy. So it said, he mentioned the hadith, وَلَا تَنْظُرَنَّ إِلَى فَخْذِ حَيٍّ وَلَا مَيِّتٍ. Don't look at the thigh of the living or the dead. This hadith, but this hadith is said is considered weak by Shaykh Al-Albani, a scholar for our time. If it is not permissible, the Shaykh continues, to look at the thigh of the living or dead, then how about looking at the private area? As you know, the private area, front or back, which is worse. So it is obligatory to begin by covering the private area, the person who is washing, from the navel to the knee, and then removing the clothes while this covering remains over the private area. Before that, actually, that's why Imam Ibn Sirin, who was one of the students of Anas ibn Malik, radiallahu ta'ala. When Anas ibn Malik passed away, radiallahu anhu, He mentioned when they're washing, when they came to the washing his private parts, that's why he said it is better, and it's from the khayr to substitute this thing, because some people who wash the I'm not saying here, but I mean some other place, maybe they don't have knowledge of anything and do not only a lot of bid'ah, but they don't care about the body. Talk about Muslims, forget about non-Muslims. They don't care about the body, and they just, and that's why you have to cover not only a private area. Obviously, you don't want to hurt the brother that passed away, neither in dunya nor hereafter. And some people, they may see something, and then they talk to others. They mention stuff and things, subhanAllah, which is haram. So he said it is nice and it is better for the children of that person, the sons, for example, which like the relative, closest relative to him, to take care at least for this washing part, which is the private part. Obviously, the same thing is not allowed for him. So two things. It has to be gloves or something, rag in the hand, so the bare hand doesn't touch the body, plus another piece of cloth, two types of cloth, and to wash the private part. So obviously the son is more for his father, and it's his close relative, and will do a better job than, at least will honor his dad better than somebody else that it doesn't feel Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's actually one of the mistakes the Sheikh mentioned in that book, that people who take or undertake this, many of them, they don't have no knowledge about that from the deen, and they just don't care, don't honor the honor of the deceased. Then the Sheikh mentioned, it says that it's slightly raised and the stomach is slightly pressed. What is the reason for that? In order for anything which is left to come out. The head and the back are slightly raised. The person washing the body places his forearm on the top of the stomach and presses down lightly from the top of the stomach. It's not too much, because it's hurting the body after the deceased body is like hurting him while he's alive. Breaking the bones, so the Prophet said, the one who breaks the bones of the deceased is the same like breaking his bones when he was alive. And presses down lightly from the top of the stomach to the bottom of the stomach, and he lifts the person slightly, so if there is something that needs to come out, it will be able to come out. All of this is done with gentleness. This is because the deceased has sanctity, just like the living. It is not said, this person is dead, so he can be dealt with a severe manner. He's dead. Rather, he is lifted, and subhanAllah, la ilaha illallah. And we're talking about this, but each one of us is going to face this. We're living, we're in this worldly life, enjoying everything. One time, we're going to come and you have lifeless. We have nothing. We cannot do anything. Nothing. People are going to move us, maybe especially if you are like heavy-duty guy, they need more people to lift you and here and there. May Allah make it easy for all of us that day. Allahumma ameen. Rather, he is lifted and pressed in a gentle manner, paying attention to the sanctity of the deceased, just as sanctity is given to the living. Then the Sheikh mentioned, next, the person washing the body wraps his hands in a rag or something similar to wash his private part. It is easy during our time to place gloves on the hands, the Sheikh said, made from cloth. They should be thick in order to achieve the intended goal of protecting his hands. Because some types of gloves, you can feel the body. Should be thick, so to not feel it. That's the purpose. The goal, that's why it was used in that time, cloth. This means that when he's cleaning the deceased's private area, the gloves protect him from directly touching it with hands. The private area is not looked at, nor is to be touched directly with the hands. That's very important. Then the Sheikh mentioned, it says, then he performs wudu on the deceased, the same wudu used for the prayer. Prophet ﷺ said, Ibda bi mayaminiha wa mawadi'u wudu'i minha. Start from the right side and with those parts of the body over which wudu is performed. Same like we make wudu ourselves, we give the same wudu to the deceased. The first action performed, this is the wudu that is performed for the prayer. The scholars have said that the exception to this is inhaling water into the nose and mouth. This is because if water is placed in nose and mouth, it will go inside his body. So we don't do that. Just a little bit, we can put a little bit of water in there. Now, what about if a person, there are some cases we cannot give him wudu, or even we cannot wash him. Some people, for example, they may be burned, parts of their body, or most of their body. Or they may be like in time of COVID, for example, some things may be disease or something. So in this time, what's happening? If we can give tayammum to the body, we do that. If it can give tayammum, as you know, this is difference of opinion. Some scholars say before going to tayammum, we go to the sprinkling of water. If you can use just a little bit of water, not the whole thing, we go there. And if not, then we go to tayammum. And sometimes even tayammum cannot be given. That is called al-mas'ala, mas'alatu faqid al-tahurain. The fuqaha, they consider this is the mas'ala, the matter of the one who has lost the two tahur, the two ways to purify himself, which is wudu and tayammum. You know that we don't have water, where it's very hard to reach the water, for example, or you have just a little just to drink and all this waste, you can do tayammum. So even there are some situations even you cannot either make wudu or ghusl, or nor can you make tayammum. There are some cases. So in this case, might be sometimes that is not then. But some people, because of their lack of knowledge, they go over, okay, the body is burned, khalas, nothing, no tayammum, no wudu, just put the kafan because of lack of knowledge. No, what we see, what we can do. That's not a person who takes care of washing, takes care of these things. Need to be a knowledgeable person who knows how it's to be done. Sunnah, expert in that, not only just by washing. Then the Shaykh mentioned, then he washes his head and beard with water and lotus leaves. The Prophet ﷺ said, اغسلوا المحرم في ثوبيه اللذين أحرم فيهما واغسلوه بماء وسدر. Wash the muhrim, the one who went for Hajj or Umrah, in the two garments in which the izar, the rida, in which he entered ihram, and wash him with water and lotus leaves. That's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, next, his right side is washed, then his left side. This is based on the previously mentioned hadith. Start from the right side, as we do normally. When we take ghusl, how we do? We wash our head, and we make wudu first, then wash our head, and then wash our right side, sunnah, and wash our left side, and then you can wash the whole body. This is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, then he is washed in a similar fashion a second and a third time. If he needs to be washed 5 or 7 times, this is done. Because maybe sometimes dirty, maybe has blood or things. It depends, it might be sick, for example. If more is needed, that is done, but it must be an odd number, 7, 9, like that. This is based in the hadith. اغسلنها 3 أو 5 أو أكثر من ذلك إن رأيتن. Wash her 3 times or 5 or more than that if you think that is necessary. He said each time the person presses lightly on the stomach of the deceased, if something comes out from it, the area is washed. He is washed as was previously mentioned. He said, and we may stop here. Just I want to finish before going to that because of the issue of ikhtilaf. So the more difference of opinions, we'll leave it for next time, inshallah. But just only here for the washing. Some people we don't know, they make mistake, or they just, as I said, you don't know, they know the religion, they just want to wash the deceased. Like showering. They bring that shower, they sprinkle the water and showering like that. And that's it. It's done. Washing the deceased. Sometimes even it's not from the scholars have said it's not from the ihtiram al-mayyit, honoring the dead. They turn them upside down, like a face down, and they wash it like that. No, shouldn't be done like that. They just put the shower and showering with water and like that. No, it's not. That's a mistake done for the people when they wash the deceased. I think we stop here, inshallah ta'ala. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal and يرزقنا حسن الختام. to grant us a good ending with La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins and to grant us His pleasure in this worldly life and hereafter. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma arham mawtana wa mawta al-muslimin. Allahumma arham mawtana wa mawta al-muslimin. Allahumma arham mawtana wa mawta al-muslimin. اللهم أعز عبادك المستضعفين في غزة وفلسطين وفي السودان وفي كل بقعة يا رب العالمين يذكر اسمك الكريم. اللهم كن لهم ولا تكن عليهم وانصرهم ولا تنصر عليهم. اللهم عليك بأعدائك أعداء الدين يا رب العالمين من الصهاينة الظالمين ومن المنافقين يا رب العالمين. اللهم عليك بهم فإنهم لا يعجزونك. اللهم عليك بهم فإنهم لا يعجزونك. اللهم أرنا فيهم يوما أسودا كيوم عاد وثمود يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا قوي يا عزيز يا قوي يا عزيز يا متين يا رب العالمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين. صلى الله على نبينا محمد وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.